The manufacturum's grinding wheels had a rhythm that never left your ears, even after shift's end. I lay on my bunk in the hab block, listening to the phantom churning of steel on steel when I first noticed the change. It wasn't sound exactly, more like a vibration pressed against the inside of my skull, a murmur too faint to be language, yet shaped like words that hovered just outside comprehension. At first, I told myself it was fatigue. 10 years of 12-hour shifts repairing the teeth of machines older than memory leaves the body weak, the mind weaker. I'd seen others falter, whispering to themselves, staring at nothing until the overseers dragged them away. Stress breaks men as easily as gears, but this was different. The first time it came, I tasted copper on my tongue. The second time, ash. The third, blood. By the fourth night, I realized the murmur wasn't fading. It was growing bolder. In the mess hall, my friend Jeren nudged me when I flinched at nothing. "You're jumpy, Veynar. Maybe too much recaf." I forced a smile. Machines don't sleep. Why should I? He laughed, but I noticed how his eyes lingered too long. People in the manufacturum learn to recognize weakness. It's contagious, like rust. The whispers followed me even then, under the thrum of cogitators, beneath the hiss of steam valves. Always there, always pressing. Sometimes the words almost made sense. A name, maybe, or a promise. But every time I focused, it slipped away like smoke. On the seventh day, it grew worse. I dropped my spanner. It clattered loud against the plating. Everyone looked. I bent to pick it up and froze, because the reflection in the polished steel didn't match. It was my face, my jaw, my eyes. But behind them something moved, a flicker of red light deep in the pupils, too quick to be explained by lumen glare, and the mouth in the reflection smiled when mine had not. I shoved the tool into my belt and turned away, heart pounding so hard I thought the overseer would hear it. I didn't dare look again. That night I dreamed of fire, not the crackling warmth of Promethean furnaces, but a fire that burned without heat, a fire that whispered as it consumed. Shapes writhed in the flames, their bodies contorted into impossible forms, screaming not in pain, but in ecstasy. When I woke, the sheets were soaked with sweat, my throat raw as if I'd been shouting. The taste of ash lingered on my tongue. I didn't sleep again. Days blurred. Machines needed fixing. Overseers barked orders. The Imperium demanded labor, and so I worked. But the whispers bled into every moment. I began to notice details others ignored. Shadows bending the wrong direction. Cogitator screens flickering with symbols that vanished when I blinked. A servo skull drifting too close, its red optics lingering on me as if aware of something hidden beneath my skin. I told myself I was imagining it, but each denial rang thinner than the last. On the 12th day, it happened. I was alone in a maintenance corridor, tightening coolant seals. The air was heavy with machine oil. My hands shook, and I cursed under my breath as the spanner slipped. And then, clear as a human voice, it spoke. "Veynar." I froze. The word echoed inside my head, but also beyond it, vibrating in the steel, in the lumen tubes, in the bones of my hands. My name, spoken in a voice that was not mine. "Who's there?" I whispered. The corridor answered with silence. Then came laughter, low, guttural, vibrating like a furnace at full roar. I dropped my tools and ran. I didn't tell Jeren. I didn't tell the overseers. To confess was to invite suspicion, and suspicion meant the ecclesiarchy. And once they set eyes on you, there was no return, but I couldn't hide the changes. My reflection warped more often now, the eyes gleaming red even in shadow. My skin crawled as if insects nested beneath, and sometimes when exhaustion overtook me, I'd wake to find words scratched into the metal wall beside my cot. Words in no script I knew. I hadn't written them. At least, I don't remember writing them. That night, Jaren came to me. His voice was low, urgent. You've been different. People notice. If you're in trouble, you need to say so now, before the wrong eyes notice. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to spill every detail, the whispers, the fire, the reflection. But before I could answer, something cold brushed against my mind. Don't. It wasn't a request, it was a command. And when I opened my mouth, the words that left my throat weren't mine. I'm fine. Jaren stared at me a moment too long. Then he nodded, uneasy. If you say so. When he left, I collapsed back onto the cot, shaking. I hadn't chosen those words. I hadn't spoken them. Something had. Later, as I stared at the ceiling, counting the rust spots to steady my breathing, the voice returned. Stronger this time, clearer. Soon. And the lumen above me flickered red, just for a moment. Long enough to show that my reflection in the steel panel was still smiling. But I wasn't. Shift began with the siren's bleat and ended, as always, with the taste of metal. Somewhere in the middle, my skull split open. Quietly, neatly, without blood. I didn't see it with my eyes. I felt it, like a seam parting along a fault line you never knew ran through you. I told myself to breathe, to count bolts, to catalogue the ordinary. 16 teeth on the drive gear, 3 missing lumen panels in Bay 9, 2 hairline fractures on the coolant pipe I'd reported 4 times, with no reply. Ordinary as armor. Ordinary keeps you sane. The voice smiled against the inside of my bones. I kept moving. In the bay, heat shimmered above the forges. Workers shouted over the clatter. Voices I'd known for years, now far away, like someone had stretched a film of glass between me and the world. Words hit that barrier and distorted. Spanner became spine. Ignition became ignition. That one stayed the same, which somehow was worse. Veynar, Overseer Hold called. You log that fracture, or you planning to marry it? Laughter. I forced my mouth to curve. Logged, I said. Again. Then fix something else, he snapped, already bored. I turned to go and felt a pressure change, as if a door had opened where there was no door. The hairs on my arms lifted in a draft that didn't exist. From the corner of my eye, a dark shape leaned from behind a stacked crate. I told myself not to look. I looked. No one was there. The crate was sealed. The shadow clung to it half a heartbeat too long, as if reluctant to let go, then flattened and vanished like spilled ink drinking into wood. I told myself the heat was making me see things. I told myself a lot of things. By midday, the headache started, low and metallic, a cog slotted one groove off. The world throbbed on the wrong frequency. Every time someone spoke my name, I heard a second voice whisper it a half-beat later, in a tone that was not a tone at all, a color maybe, or a temperature. Jaren found me under the service gantry, hands braced on steel, breath shuddering. He took one look at my face and swore softly. You didn't sleep. Busy, I said. Busy dying. His voice gentled. Brother, you need a priest. Or a medici. Or both. Cold washed through me, clean and absolute. Don't, the other voice said, soft as soot. We are doing so well together. I straightened. It's nothing. Your nose, Jaren said. I wiped it. Red stained my glove. The voice purred. You taste it. Good. I'm fine, I lied. He didn't believe me. I could tell by the way he didn't argue. People who believe argue. He squeezed my shoulder, then left, as if leaving was mercy. The film of glass thickened. The afternoon passed in jump cuts. One moment I was threading cable through a conduit. The next I was halfway across the floor with cable burned black in my hand, smoke rising from my palm. Someone must have shouted, because my ears rang. But when I looked up, the mouths around me moved without sound. I blinked, and sound returned mid-laugh, a chorus that arrived half a second late. "You are slipping," the voice said, affectionate, like a tutor pleased with a pupil's progress. "We can help." "Stop," I whispered. "Not possible." In the washroom, I splashed water on my face. The mirror was streaked. My reflection leaned closer on its own. "Ask me," it said, without moving its lips. I stared. My chest forgot the trick of breathing. "Ask you what?" It smiled, and the mirror smiled wider, too wide for the bones of a human jaw. "What I am." "I know what you are," I said, and my voice shook. "You're a glitch. Exhaustion. A dash." The lights cut out. Black swallowed the room. Somewhere a machine coughed, struggled, died. The emergency lumen should have kicked in. They didn't. Something breathed behind me. "Jaren," I said. "Is that you?" My hand found the sink by memory. I could trace every chip, every rust patch. I could not trace the breath that moved the little hairs at the nape of my neck. "Say my name," the dark said. Not a voice. A pressure, a shape in the air that made the syllables inside my head shiver. "Say it and I will stop." I didn't say it. Not because I had faith or courage. Because my mouth wouldn't operate. The machinery of me stalled. Then the lights snapped back. Full brightness. Too bright. The mirror held a normal reflection. Pale. Eyes a little red. Human. Behind me the stall door stood open. Empty. I laughed once, short and wrong, and walked out. By evening, the seam in my mind widened. I could feel thoughts slide toward it, catch and hang like threads caught in a gear. I jammed greasy food into my mouth and tasted nothing but ash. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, so I sat on them. The bench vibrated beneath me. No, my bones did. Overseer Hald slammed a handbell. "All hands to Bay 3. Spirit of the press is acting up. Rituals for machines. Chance to coax steel into compliance." We filed in, heads down. The press loomed, a relic of a better age when men believed machines were friends. Its picked scrawl flared and died. Its cogitator screen glitched with crawling symbols I pretended not to recognize. Knife hooks of script that had haunted the walls above my bunk, in dreams I hadn't admitted were dreams. The priest arrived with his censer, smoke coiling like incense always does when it means business. He touched the machine. He whispered litanies. He turned, as priests do, to look over us with gentle suspicion. His eyes slid past me, then came back, narrowed. "Your name," he said. "Veynar," I answered, and the other voice answered afterward, perfectly overlaid like two tracks sync-locked together. The priest's nostrils flared. He took a second breath, a deeper one, like a man testing air in a room where a gas leak might kill. "Have you been unwell?" he asked carefully. "Say no," the rational part of me commanded. "Say yes," the other purred. "Admit it. Invite me." I began. The press flexed with a sound like bone. The cogitator screamed. The priest snatched his rosarius up and barked to counter him. Smoke boiled. The screen spat a line of text in a language that hurt to look at. I looked anyway. I couldn't not. The words arranged themselves in my mind as meaning. Open. The press came down an inch on nothing. The floor shook. The workers scattered. Hald shouted. I didn't move. The seam in my head yawned and the word echoed through it, again and again, sanding away the edges of me. The priest grabbed my wrist. His fingers burned, not figuratively, hot, like his bones held coals. Look at me, he said, voice steady, the way a man's voice is steady when a cliff has already given way under his feet, and all that remains is the motion of falling. Say the creed. I don't. My mouth dried. I knew the creed. Everyone knows it. We learn it before we learn not to cry. We know a better one, the other said. Shorter, sweeter. Let me teach you. Say the creed. The priest's grip tightened. Pain shot up my arm and anchored me for one more heartbeat. I opened my mouth. What came out was not the creed. The sound was older than language. It scraped the inside of my teeth. The air went thin. Lumen tubes popped one after another, little white stars dying in sequence. Somewhere metal shrieked as if a machine had tried to pull its own spine out through its throat. Workers fled screaming. Overseer Hold backed away, eyes wide, lips cracking syllables of a prayer he'd never expected to need. The priest didn't let go. He held my wrist, as if holding might reroute a river. Psycher, he hissed to no one. Rogue. I shook my head. Tears blurred everything. I tried again for the creed and coughed up a word that smelled like wet iron and rotting fruit. The priest made his choice. He tore a sanctified pin from his robe and drove it into the flesh of my forearm. Pain cut white and clean through the fog. I screamed. A human sound, blessedly ordinary. The press halted. Silence fell in a broken heap. Then, from the ceiling, a line of black, spread like ink dropped in water. It traced a circle over Bay 3, a perfect dark ring, and the temperature dropped enough for our breaths to show. The seam in my mind gave a little, like a door unlatched. Almost, the voice sighed. Almost there. The priest stared up, lips chapped with fear. Seal the bay, he shouted hoarsely. Now, now. Doors ground down, locks engaged. The bay became a box that hummed with pressure. Jaren slammed into my side, grabbed my shoulders, shook me hard enough to rattle the pieces I was still holding together. Veynar, look at me. Stay with me. I tried, I really did. His face swam in and out of focus, then snapped sharp. A scar I'd never noticed across his knuckle. A fleck of oil at his jaw. Human details, reasons. Something upstairs, inside, below, laughed. The black ring on the ceiling filled with color that was not a color. The air turned inside out. The priest shouted until his voice broke. His rosarius burned like a small star. Workers pressed to the doors. Overseer Hold hammered the control panel in a panic that would cost him his life if anyone lived to report it. And in the middle of that wrong light, a shape leaned through. Not a body, a suggestion of one, like a face drawn on smoke by a finger dipped in blood. It regarded the bay with bored hunger, then tilted as if listening to a song just under the threshold of hearing. Say my name, the thing breathed. The seam split. A pressure slid into me, cool as a knife's back pressed to the inside of the skull. I felt it find the place where I kept my name, and thumb it open like a locket. Veynar, I said, or the thing said through me, and the two sounds were the same. Jaren's grip turned to iron. Fight it, he said, voice raw. You hear me? Fight. I wanted to answer. I wanted to tell him I would. that I was, that I had never stopped. But my mouth smiled. The bay doors screamed as something on the other side dragged claws across them. The priest thrust his rosarius into my hands, desperate, foolish. For a beat, the amulet felt heavy as a planet. The lights died again. Darkness took one step closer. The bay reopened 3 hours later. When the doors finally ground upward, a squad of arbitrators stood waiting with shock mauls and sanctified chains. Overseer Hald tried to explain, babbling about the press malfunction, but the priest's cracked voice overrode him. Possession. Containment required. That was all it took. The word possession draped over me heavier than iron. Jeren tried to shield me, foolishly stepping between the mauls and me. They shoved him aside. Chains bit into my wrists, and a sanctified hood dropped over my head, pressing incense-soaked cloth against my face until my lungs burned. Through the choking scent, the voice chuckled. Good. Let them bind us. Cages are only doors waiting to be opened. I wanted to scream. Instead, I swallowed ashes. They kept me under watch in an isolation cell. No cot, no mirror, no tools to see my reflection. Just walls painted the same institutional beige that belongs nowhere in nature. But beige doesn't stay beige under warp-stained eyes. By the second hour, words crawled across the surface. Not written, not etched, just visible, like veins rising under pale skin. I blinked, and the symbols bled into one another, writhing like worms. Your walls are thin, the demon whispered. Your mind thinner. We will decorate them together. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal and begged the Emperor for silence. The silence never came. Interrogation followed. A robed adept entered, vox grill hissing, brass mask staring blank. He spoke in liturgical tones. Name? Veynar. And the one within? There is no one within. The mask tilted. You spoke tongues in Bay 3. Witnesses confirm. What was said? I don't know. You invited something. I didn't. The air chilled. My breath fogged. Behind the adept's shoulder, the shadows peeled away from the wall and looked at me. Lie better, it whispered, amused. The adept's servo-quill scratched notes onto parchment. Further testing required. Chains dragged me back to the cell. The changes began after that. I noticed them in small moments. My fingernails darkened, not with oil or rust, but as though ink had seeped into the keratin itself. The whites of my eyes flickered with veins of crimson, faint enough I could dismiss them as broken vessels, until I saw them glowing in the dark when no lumen burned. My skin crawled, literally. When I pressed my palms against my forearms, the flesh rippled beneath like something shifting just below the surface. Worse were the slips of the tongue. When the arbitrators brought ration paste, I muttered thanks, only to hear myself say the words in a language that scorched my throat. The arbitrator recoiled, dropped the tray and crossed himself. I hadn't meant it, but the voice had. Sleep offered no mercy. Dreams came thick with smoke and fire, but sharper now, more coherent. The daemon showed me its world. Rivers that boiled backward, skies stitched shut with veins of lightning, armies of clawed silhouettes kneeling in mockery of prayer, and always, at the center of that vision, a figure blurred by heat haze, smiling with my reflection's too wide grin. I woke with my mouth full of soot. On the 6th night, Jeren came. He must have bribed a guard because no arbitrator accompanied him. He stepped into the cell, face pale, eyes rimmed red. Throne, Veynar. You look... He stopped. He couldn't finish. I tried to smile. My lips split at the corners. Blood tasted like iron and rust. "You need help," he whispered. "Real help. Not this. Not their chains. They'll burn me," I croaked. "Better burned than hollow." His jaw trembled. "Say something to me. Say anything that's you." I opened my mouth. "He belongs to me." The words spilled out in a voice layered with mine and something older, deeper. The air shook with it. Jeren staggered back, eyes wide with horror. "Emperor, save you," he whispered, and fled. I slammed myself against the cell wall, chains clattering, throat raw. No, that wasn't me. But the demon only laughed, the sound vibrating through the rivets. He will not come again. Good. Less distraction. Morning brought another interrogation. The brass-masked adept asked the same questions. "Do you hear voices?" "Yes." "Do you see things others cannot?" "Yes." "Will you submit to purification?" I hesitated. Behind the mask, I sensed amusement, like he wanted me to answer wrong. "Yes," I said finally. "Then recite the creed." I tried. "Emperor, forgive me." I tried. But halfway through, the words twisted. "The Emperor protects" became "the Emperor consumes," and my own voice deepened until the syllables bent the air. The adept leaned close. "Noted," he said, utterly calm, as though cataloguing a specimen. The chains dragged me away again. In the hours that followed, something shifted. The beige walls rippled like stretched skin. The floor grew warm, pulsing faintly as though it had veins beneath. When I pressed my palm against the plating, it throbbed like a heartbeat. "Not outside," the demon whispered, triumphant. "Inside. We are closer now. Look." I looked, and in the steel reflection of my shackles, I saw my face. My eyes burned red, not flickering this time, but constant. My grin split too wide. My tongue was forked, and my reflection winked. They moved me back to the hab block. Not because I was clean, no one believed that, but because cells fill fast on a hive world where suspicion is death. Easier to watch me in the open, among the others. Easier to see how much of me was still me. Jeren wouldn't look at me. When I entered the mess, his tray clattered against the table, half-finished rations sliding onto the floor. He stood and walked away without a word. The others followed his lead, their eyes cutting toward me, then away, like birds flinching from a shadow overhead. I sat alone, the ration paste congealing into grey lumps. My stomach churned with hunger, but the smell was wrong. Acrid, sharp, like burnt copper and old blood. I gagged, pushed the tray aside. The voice purred. Not food, not anymore. That night the whispers grew bolder. Not in my head this time. Out loud, curling around the edges of the hab walls. "Veynar," they hissed. I jerked upright in my cot. No one else stirred. Rows of bunks creaked with the breathing of exhausted workers. No one else heard. "Chosen," the whisper pressed. "Chosen vessel." I pressed my hands over my ears until my skull throbbed. The words leaked through bone. Across from me, a young worker named Lena stirred. She rolled over, blinked at me, frowning. "Who are you talking to?" My mouth opened. "To me." Lena's scream ripped the dormitory awake. Arbitrators came in minutes later. Their shock mauls thrummed with holy wards, crackling blue. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The stink of fear clung to every bunk like oil. 2 men swore they heard voices echo with mine. Another claimed he saw my eyes flare red in the dark. Lena just cried, repeating, "He spoke in 2 voices. 2 voices." The arbitrators bound me again. The sanctified chains burned hotter this time, blistering my wrists. As they dragged me through the corridor, Overseer Hold spat at my feet. "You'll damn us all." For once I didn't argue. They took me not to a cell, but to the chapel. Candles flickered, filling the air with melted wax and stale incense. A single statue of the Emperor loomed, faceless from centuries of soot, yet somehow watching. Always watching. The priest who had held my wrist in Bay 3 stood waiting. His hands shook as he raised the rosary. "You are not beyond hope," he said. "The Emperor's light can still burn it out of you." "Burn me out," the demon chuckled inside. "Try. Let us see who survives the flame." My lips peeled into a smile that wasn't mine. The rite began. Prayers recited. Incense swung. Litanies etched into the air with every shaking syllable. At first, the words pressed against me like water against glass. My body trembled. My vision blurred. For a heartbeat, I thought maybe, just maybe, the light could work. Then the demon laughed. The candle flames guttered and died all at once. Darkness crushed the chapel. The statue's faceless head split with a hairline crack. I screamed. I don't know if it was me or it. My skin blistered with heat, though no flame touched me. Chains clanged as I writhed on the floor, choking on smoke that poured from nowhere. The priest shouted louder, forcing his voice to steady. "The Emperor protects." The demon answered through me. "The Emperor consumes." The rosarius shattered. They bound me tighter after that. Shackled ankles, wrists, even neck. They covered my eyes with a hood embroidered in wards that stung like acid. But chains only made the demon louder. "Do you see, Veynar? They are afraid. They should be. You and I are stronger than their prayers. Their light flickers. I am constant." I wanted to shout it down. I wanted to drown it in hymns. But the words of the creed twisted in my mouth, turning sour, crumbling like ash before they could leave my throat. The priest's footsteps followed me back to the barracks. "The tests will continue," he told the arbitrators. "The Emperor's fire must burn hotter." I didn't reply. My voice was not my own. Rumors spread faster than oil. By the next shift, no one would stand within arm's length of me. My tools were gone, my station stripped. Overseers whispered about contamination, infection, damnation. "Possessed," someone spat. "Demon bait." Jaren said nothing at all. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That silence hurt worse than the chains. That night, the whispers changed. No longer soft, no longer coaxing. They became urgent, sharp, demanding. "Open the door." I sat bolt upright on my cot, breath ragged. The hab block was quiet, workers snoring in exhausted heaps. "Open the door." I turned toward the entrance. Shadows crawled across it, long fingers of black stretching from the corners. "Open it, and I will show you what you truly are." My chains clattered as I stood. My heart hammered. My feet moved without permission. Step by step, I drew closer. The shadow fingers beckoned. The lock clicked. The door began to open. The door opened on its own. No hinges groaned, no gears turned, just a slow, deliberate widening, as if the air itself peeled reality apart. Beyond lay the corridor, but not as I knew it. The lumen strips bled red light. The walls sagged like skin stretched too thin, veins of shadow crawling under the surface. Every breath tasted of iron. "Step through," the voice urged. "Claim what waits for you." My body obeyed. Chains clinked, dragging across the floor. Each step felt like sinking into warm mud, yet I couldn't stop. The corridor stretched farther than it should have, swallowing distance. At the far end, something pulsed behind a door that hadn't been there before. A heartbeat. Mine, but not mine. Behind me, someone stirred. Veynar. Lena's voice. Groggy, frightened. I froze. For a heartbeat, my mind cleared. I could smell the sweat-soaked air of the hab block, hear the faint snores of workers still asleep. Ordinary sounds, normality fighting back. Then the demon whispered her name. Not in my head. Out loud, in a voice that scraped across the metal walls. Lena screamed. The dormitory exploded with panic. Workers tumbled from bunks, shouting, praying, backing away from me as though I carried fire in my hands. One man threw a boot. Another made the sign of the Aquila with trembling fingers. The shadows answered them. They rose from the floor like smoke solidifying, curling upward into half shapes with too many limbs, too many eyes. Their whispers overlapped with mine, a chorus of hunger. "Demon!" someone shouted. "He's possessed!" Arbitrators stormed the corridor, shock mauls hissing. They should have beaten me down in seconds. But the demon laughed, and the lumen strips burst. Darkness swallowed everything. I didn't remember moving. One moment the arbitrators rushed me, mauls raised. The next, I was standing over them, breath ragged, wrists still bound in chains that now sagged molten, dripping onto the floor. The smell of scorched flesh filled the air. They weren't dead. Not yet. They writhed, clutching at their faces, their armor sparking. My hands glowed faintly, veins burning with warp light. I stared in horror. I didn't... Yes, the demon crooned. You did. I only opened the door. You stepped through. The priest arrived seconds later, dragging his censer, face pale as wax. "Contain him," he bellowed. His voice cracked on the last word. "Contain me." I was already gone. The smoke thickened, choking the dormitory. Shadows writhed against the walls, whispering promises in tongues no human should hear. Some of the workers dropped to their knees, praying desperately. Others tried to flee, only to find the exits sealed, doors trembling under an invisible hand. The demon roared through me, a sound that rattled every rivet. "They are yours. Take them." My knees buckled. I fought to stay upright. No, I won't. Chains bit into my flesh as I struggled, skin blistering where the wards tried to hold the corruption back. Lena's eyes met mine through the smoke. She shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. "Fight it," she whispered. "Please, fight it." For a heartbeat, I almost believed I could. Then the shadows surged. I lost time again. When awareness returned, I stood in the center of the dormitory. The walls were scorched black. The bunks twisted like wax in a fire. The arbitrators lay unconscious, or worse, in a heap by the door. The priest Rosarius lay shattered at my feet. He knelt a few meters away, clutching his chest, lips moving in broken prayers. The workers huddled at the far wall, pressed so tightly together they looked like a single, trembling organism. Lena clutched her Aquila pendant so hard her palm bled, and my hands dripped blood that wasn't mine. "Do you see?" the demon whispered lovingly. "You are already mine, and still they fear you. Still they call you cursed. Let us show them what salvation truly means." Sirens wailed. The heavy tramp of boots thundered in the corridors beyond. Not arbitrators this time. Heavier, disciplinary troops. Flame units. The priest coughed blood and rasped, "Burn him," before it spreads. The demon purred in my ear. Let them try. The doors blew open. White light flooded in, blinding after the smoke and darkness. I raised my hands to shield my eyes. Through the haze, I saw silhouettes advancing. Flamers leveled, tanks hissing with promethium. The priest forced himself upright, voice hoarse but commanding. Fire! Fire before it's too late. For the first time, the demon fell silent. I realized with cold certainty that this was no longer about survival. This was about annihilation. The triggers clicked. Promethium jets roared. The promethium hit like a sun. White fire rolled across the room in a wave, searing lacquer from metal and turning uniforms to steaming rags. The smell of burning flesh was immediate, a raw animal note that made my stomach heave. People screamed, long, piercing sounds that shook the rafters. The world contracted to sound and heat and the simple, horrible fact of pain. For one sliver of a second, the demon in me laughed like a child at a conflagration. The laughter cut clean across the chaos and, for the first time, it felt like a sentient thing standing next to me, thrilled by the spectacle. Then instinct, the animal part of me that had kept me alive through shifts and accidents, kicked. I lunged forward, dragging a heap of scorched cloth away from a man who'd stopped moving. His skin sloughed like overcooked hide. His eyes were wide and white and raw. Jaren's voice screamed somewhere. I couldn't tell if he was calling my name or begging for someone to stop the flames. Hands tore at my chains. The sanctified links snapped and fused with my wrists under the heat, dragging rivers of glowing metal over my skin. Pain detonated along my arms. Pure, white, honest pain. It landed me somewhere solid and human. I clung to that pain like a plank in storm-tossed water. Good, the demon murmured. Feel. We will keep you whole enough to bear it. I stumbled through smoke and bodies, flinging blankets, smothering small fires where I could. My breath came ragged and hot. The world was a smear of red and orange, and the bright stars of ruptured lumen bulbs. Someone grabbed my sleeve. Lena, I thought, pulled me back. Her face was streaked with soot and tears, eyes ringed in black from smoke. She looked like she might not have a face beneath all of it. "Veynar," she choked. "For the Emperor, get out." I couldn't. Not because I wanted to stay, but because something had taken a hold of the room and would not let go. A current ran beneath the heat, and it drove me toward the center like a moth to a furnace. At the center of the dormitory, where the Rosarius had shattered, a dark bloom had formed on the floor. Not shadow, something denser. It sucked in light, swallowing shape and suggestion until the edges of the room looked like a painting burned at the center. From within that bloom rose a smell I recognized before I could name it. The same acrid tang that had haunted my mouth in those first nights. It was the scent of the demon's world, sour and sweet like iron left in sugar. I stepped forward. My feet moved. I wanted to stop them, to taste ash and regret instead of whatever this was. But my legs had their own plans. The demon guided them like a puppeteer, patient, certain. As I approached, the air around the bloom pulsed with a heartbeat that was not mine. My skin crawled. The hairs on my arms lifted again, but they did not tremble with fear. They trembled with anticipation. "Stop," Jaren said, voice shredded. He lunged at me and got no farther than the smoke. His arm lashed out and hit my shoulder. I felt the impact. He hit me with the force of a man trying to drag a drowning friend to shore. For a second, his hands were strong and warm and very, very human. Then his fingers slid as if through oil. His grip loosened. His knuckles scraped bone as if his hand had become unreal for an instant. He looked at me, and his pupils were the wrong size. "No," he whispered. "No." And then his face convulsed and he fell backward, unmoving. I reached for him and felt something cold coil around my wrist from the inside, like ice sliding under skin. Panic roared through me, a raw animal protest, and the daemon answered by tightening its hold, an inner hand closing, patient and inevitable. Something inside me rose up like a second throat. It tasted the air. It tasted the screams. It spoke, and the voice that came out was layered. My voice overlaid with something older, carved from the warp. "Leave," it said. But the sound was not a plea. It was a claim. The smoke swelled into a shape, and from it, a hand extended. Fingers long and too many jointed, each tipped with a nail like a shard of obsidian. It reached for the ceiling and pulled, and the timbers groaned as if something great tried to claw its way out from below. The bloom answered with a shuddering hum that pressed into my chest. My heart tried to break free. The priest, blessed fool, stumbled forward with what was left of his rosarius, shouting prayers that fell like pebbles in a storm. He thrust the shattered amulet at me, as if by touching it I might be anchored. For a moment, it felt heavy, and then light, as if the whole chapel's gravity shifted. "Bind it!" someone screamed. "Bind the host!" Arbitrators charged with chains and spikes. They hurled sanctified metal toward me, and for a stretch of time that yawned like an empty maw, they seemed to land. Sound crashed, metal on metal, the smell of ozone thickening. But the chains met me and fused, not to my flesh, but to something that moved beneath it. They wrapped and tightened, and when they pulled, it pulled back. Rope of will against rope of other will. Something in the center bloomed brighter, and the bloom answered by spilling a black light that licked at flesh. Where it touched, skin rippled and shifted as if trying on new forms. A man across the room convulsed, and the shape of his face elongated. An eye split into two. He died with the smile of someone who'd been lied to by a god. I felt my own hands change. Not only the outside, skin and nail, but deeper, where tendon and memory meet. The bones popped and stretched like fresh bread breaking. I smelled new things, rotting twilight, the taste of moons that had never been born. "Veynar!" Jaren's voice cracked like a whip. He staggered upright and forced himself forward on knees. "Veynar, come back." I wanted to. I wanted to break the ropes of whatever held me and bite my way back to flesh and blood and mistakes and all the small human things I'd thought meaningless. I pushed with everything I had. For a breathing, painful moment, my own name screamed back at me from inside. A little hinge clicked. I saw, like an aperture closing, the thing's hand withdraw from my mind. Then the bloom sighed, and the thing inside me laughed. It wasn't triumphant, not yet. It was simply delighted, like a predator that's tasted the first warm blood of an animal and savors the promise of feast. The flames seared higher. The ceiling groaned. The dormitory's door burst outward as something hammered at it from the other side. The disciplinary troops had not expected the breach to be this alive. A shape filled the doorway. Not man, not demon, but something caught between the two. It moved with graceful, horrible slowness, and where it looked the light bent. It cocked its head as if appraising the scene, and then it fixed its too many eyes on me. "We are together now," it said, not through my ears, but in the marrow of my bones. I felt my last human thought crow like a dying bird in the dark. I could still stop this. I must stop this. Something bright and hot found its way to my chest, a lance of promise or an ember of finality, and the world narrowed to the pinprick of that heat. When I woke, the fire was gone. The bloom, the smoke, the impossible hand, all gone. Only scorched walls remained, bunk frames twisted into blackened ribs. The air still stank of burned flesh. My wrists throbbed. Chains heavy as guilt pinned me to a chair. The links weren't the same sanctified iron. They were heavier, etched with symbols that crawled when I looked at them too long. I tried to move. They burned. Good, The demon whispered in my skull. "They have dressed you for your trial." The chamber around me was stone, old and sweating with condensation. No windows, only slits in the ceiling where lumen light trickled through like weak sunlight in a cave. 2 arbitrators stood at the door, helms fixed forward, shock mauls humming faintly. They weren't watching me. They were watching the thing inside me. A voice rasped through the chamber. "Bring in the scribe." Servo skulls drifted in, their parchments flapping like banners. Quills dripped black ink, though no one held them. They circled me, recording every twitch of my face, every labored breath. Then he entered. The Inquisitor. He was not dressed like the arbitrators, nor like the priest who had tried to save me. His robes were simple, black. A rosette gleamed at his chest, its double-headed eagle heavy as judgment. His eyes were dark, bloodshot, and utterly tired. He stopped 3 paces from me and studied my face as though it were an entry in a ledger. "Name." "Veynar," I croaked. "And the one inside you?" I shook my head. "It doesn't have a name." The demon chuckled, soft as velvet. "Liar. You know it. I whispered it once, and you tasted it on your tongue. Say it." My mouth twitched. I bit down hard enough to draw blood. The Inquisitor leaned closer. "You spoke tongues. You burned men without flame. You opened a door. That is not ignorance. That is possession." "I didn't open it," I whispered. "It opened me." For the first time, his gaze flickered, a spark of interest. "Describe it." I shook my head again. If I described it, if I put the shapes and smells into words, I feared they would take root. "Tell him," the demon urged. "Tell him what you saw, and watch how his faith trembles." The Inquisitor circled me slowly, hands clasped behind his back. "You are fortunate," he said at last. "Most like you are purged with flame before they speak. But the circumstances of your breach..." He stopped. "We must learn if you are useful." "Useful?" My voice cracked. "As a weapon, or as a warning?" The demon purred approval. "Ah, finally, someone who understands." They began the questions. Simple at first. "When did you first hear it? What did it promise? What memories does it reach for?" I answered what I could. I told them about the whispers, the reflections, the taste of copper, the fire dreams. Each admission felt like ripping flesh from bone. When they asked what it promised, I hesitated. The demon pressed hard against the seam of my mind. Images filled my vision. Stars burning, worlds kneeling, me walking among them with power to break mountains. I gasped. "It promises everything." The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. "Does it speak the Emperor's name?" I swallowed. "No." "Then it is not everything." Hours bled away. The questions sharpened. They brought psychers into the chamber, gaunt men with hollow eyes, their skulls scarred with wards. They reached into me, searching. One recoiled instantly, clutching his head. Blood trickled from his nose. Another screamed and collapsed, smoke curling from his ears. The third simply stared into my eyes and whispered, "It's smiling at me." Then he tore at his own throat until arbitrators dragged him away. The demon roared with laughter. "They are weak. You and I are strong." The Inquisitor silenced the chamber with a raised hand. His gaze lingered on me, heavy and thoughtful. "You are not entirely gone. Not yet." That terrified me more than flames ever could. They left me in darkness after that. The arbitrators remained by the door, silent statues. Time stretched. My head lolled. I thought of Jeren. If he lived, if he cursed my name, if he prayed for me. The demon whispered sweetly, He is dead. He died trying to hold you and I slipped through his fingers. You killed him, Veynar. No, I croaked. Yes, and when you dream, you will see his face. Over and over. I pressed my forehead against the cold chains until my skin split. Anything to drown it out. When the Inquisitor returned, he carried something new. A small iron-bound book. Its clasp glowed faintly. He set it on the table before me. This is a grimoire recovered from a cult in the lower hives. It contains names. If yours matches what is written here. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I stared at the book. The clasp clicked. Without touching it, I knew what it said. The demon surged against my skull, thrilled. There, it hissed. There I am. Speak it aloud. Give me shape. My lips trembled. Sweat poured down my face. The Inquisitor leaned closer, quill poised. Say it. They stripped me from the chair and dragged me to the chamber below. The air grew heavier with every step. Incense choked the stairwell, thick as fog. Servo skulls buzzed overhead, carrying censers that dripped smoke into my eyes, into my mouth, until I gagged. The arbitrators didn't flinch. They knew what waited below. I knew too. The demon hummed in my skull like a string drawn too tight. At last. At last. The chamber was circular, carved from stone blackened by centuries of burning oils. Symbols lined the walls. Aquilae, script of the Ministorum. Wards etched so deep the grooves still glowed faintly. At the center stood an altar of iron. Chains as thick as my wrist lay coiled like sleeping serpents, their tips ending in needle hooks. I fought when they forced me down. I thrashed against their grips, shouting, "Don't let it near me." The demon whispered louder, "Yes, let them try to cage me. They will fail, and when they fail, you will see what we can become." The first hook pierced my forearm. The pain was blinding, radiant. I screamed until my throat tore raw. The second hook slid into my shoulder. The third locked around my neck. Blood slicked the altar. The Inquisitor loomed above, his eyes like twin pits, his hands steady as stone. "Begin," the priest chanted. Their voices layered into a single drone, echoing like waves through the chamber. The incense thickened until the air was unbreathable, every lungful scraping like sand. My chains burned. Symbols lit up along their length, crawling like fire through my veins. My back arched. The demon roared inside me, a sound that rattled my teeth. But my body stayed pinned, nailed by holy iron. "They cannot hold me," it hissed. "Not when you already opened the door." A psycher entered. Young, gaunt, trembling. His skull bore scars from failed bindings, his eyes too large for his narrow face. He placed his hand against my brow. Cold surged through me like drowning. "Search," the Inquisitor commanded. The psycher's mouth opened. His lips moved, but the voice that came was not his. So many memories. Small, weak. "Do you cherish these, host? The taste of bread, the sound of rain, the girl with brown eyes you lost to reassignment. Do you think they will save you now?" My blood turned to ice. The psycher screamed. His body convulsed, eyes rolling white. He tried to pull his hand away, but the demon clung. Blood poured from his nose. "Hold him," the Inquisitor snapped. Arbitrators seized the psycher's arms, but his skin smoked where they touched. The demon shrieked through his throat until he collapsed, limp, a husk steaming on the altar beside me. The priests faltered. Their chant wavered. Weak, the daemon gloated. "One by one they will break." The Inquisitor did not falter. He signaled, and another set of chains lowered from the ceiling, thicker, barbed, their iron tips glowing red. "Bind it tighter," he commanded. "Seal the host. The barbs plunged into me, legs, chest, spine. Agony ripped me open. My vision turned white, then black, then red. For a moment I thought the demon screamed. Then I realized it was me. But the voice inside twisted through my cry. More. More iron, more prayer, it only feeds me. The chains tightened. My bones creaked. The altar groaned under the strain. Something shifted. My skin blistered. Not from heat. Something beneath pushed outward. Fingers that weren't mine pressed against the inside of my flesh, seeking escape. My veins bulged, pulsing black light. I felt my mouth stretch wider than bone allowed. The priests recoiled, their chanting breaking as they stared. The demon spoke with my tongue, each word bending the air. I see you, little servants. I see your fear. You cannot bind what is eternal. One priest dropped his censer, scrambling backward, his faith crumbling. The demon laughed. The Inquisitor raised his rosette. By his will I command you, stay! The symbol flared bright. For a heartbeat, the demon recoiled. The chains tightened. I gasped, my vision clearing, humanity clawing its way back into my throat. I whispered, hoarse, please, kill me. The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. Not yet. The demon surged back, stronger, angrier. My body convulsed, back arched against the barbs. Skin split along my arms, light leaking through the cracks. Fingers stretched too long, nails blackened into claws. The arbitrators stumbled backward. One crossed himself, voice breaking. Emperor, preserve us. The demon spoke again, my voice doubled and tripled. You cannot preserve what is already mine. The chamber shook. The iron altar screeched as cracks spidered through the stone floor. Candles guttered out. The Inquisitor didn't move. He held the rosette high, his voice calm, almost weary. You will not break this one. He will break you. Inside my head, I screamed. The demon roared back, claws scraping across the walls of my mind. The chains burned hotter. The priests tried to rally their hymn, voices breaking, hands shaking. My body twitched, caught between collapse and transformation. The demon pushed outward harder than ever. I felt something rip, and for the first time I saw it. Not a reflection, not a shadow. Its true face, pressed against the veil of my skin, eyes like burning pits, teeth too many for any mouth, a grin that split me from jaw to ear. It whispered, clear as a blade against bone, say my name. The name pressed against my lips like molten iron. Not a word, not even sound. A shape carved into thought, a syllable made of hunger. It coiled in my throat, begging to be born. I clamped my teeth until blood filled my mouth. My body convulsed, chains rattling. The priests cried louder, their voices cracking as they forced the hymn into the air. The demon laughed inside me. They chant for me, not against me. Every syllable oils the gears of my ascent. My arms bulged against the hooks, flesh split, leaking black light. Fingers stretched long, bones snapping and reforming in wet clicks. My jaw cracked wider, tongue splitting like a serpent's. The arbitrators fell back. One dropped his shock maul and whispered, God, Emperor, forgive us. The Inquisitor's voice cut the chamber, calm, measured. Tighten the wards. Iron shrieked. The chains glowed white-hot, carving symbols into my skin. The smell of burning meat filled the air. My scream tore free, but layered, doubled, tripled, until it shook dust from the ceiling. The demon roared through me. You cannot hold me. The altar cracked. The floor split. Candles blew out in a rush of cold air. The priests faltered. One collapsed, blood leaking from his eyes. Another's voice broke mid-hymn, his throat raw. I hung between collapse and eruption. Inside, the demon dragged me into darkness. A realm not of stone or chains, but endless black. It stood before me, not full-sized, not yet. A silhouette stitched from smoke and fire, a grin glowing where its face should be. "You saw me once in glass," it whispered. "You saw me in flame. Now see me as I am." It reached forward. Its hand touched my chest. My heart stuttered. "Say my name," it crooned. "Give me flesh. Give me freedom." I whispered back, shaking. "I won't." The grin widened. "Then I will take it." My body spasmed. Spikes of bone punched through my shoulders. My spine arched, vertebrae cracking like gunfire. My skin blistered, then split, runes searing their way out as if carved from within. The arbitrators shouted. The priests scrambled back. The Inquisitor did not move. "Hold him," he said, voice steady. "This is the point of fracture." The host fights. The demon overreaches. Bind them together, together. The demon seized on the word. "Yes, together. You and I are no longer separate. You cannot deny what I am when I am already inside your marrow. You are not fighting me. You are becoming me." I screamed, straining against the chains. "No." The demon's laughter filled the chamber, rattling the walls. "Look at them. Look how afraid they are. You are already more than human, already divine." I opened my eyes. The arbitrators were pressed against the walls, terror etched in their postures. The priests huddled, voices broken, prayers faltering. Even the Inquisitor, steady as stone, watched with a glimmer of fascination, calculation. For the first time, I saw myself through their eyes. Something monstrous, radiant, unstoppable. And for a heartbeat, I wanted it. That heartbeat was all it needed. The demon surged. My chest split with a sound like tearing cloth. Black fire poured from the wound, coiling upward into a shape too vast for the chamber. My skin crawled, sloughing, reshaping. My eyes burned. The demon screamed triumph through my throat. "I am free." The chains snapped. Chaos detonated. Arbitrators lunged, shock mauls sparking against flesh that no longer belonged to a man. They were flung aside like dolls, their armor cracking. One's helm imploded under invisible pressure, spraying bone and blood across the stone. The priests wailed, clutching their symbols. One tore his own eyes out rather than look. Another's heart burst mid-prayer. The chamber shook as if the hive itself feared collapse. Dust poured from the ceiling. The iron altar shattered. And in the middle of it, I stood, my body no longer mine. My limbs too long, my jaw unhinged, eyes burning coals. A voice not mine tore from my throat, echoing off stone and flesh alike. "I am Legion." But inside, I wasn't gone. I hung in the black, tethered by pain, by memory, by scraps of humanity that clung stubbornly to the edges of the demon storm. Jaren's voice echoed faint, begging me to fight. Lena's terrified face burned in my mind. My parents' photograph, long gone, surfaced from memory. Small things, fragile things, but mine. I clung to them. "No," I whispered inside the dark. "You are not free. Not yet." The demon hissed, recoiling, but only slightly. "You cannot stop me." "Maybe not," I said, "but I can slow you." And for the briefest instant, the monster wearing my body faltered. The Inquisitor saw. He stepped forward, rosette raised, voice cutting through the carnage. "The host still fights. Seal the chamber. Bind him again. Use everything." The demon shrieked, the sound scraping across my bones. "Traitor, You betray yourself. I spat blood and whispered, better me than them. Chains descended once more, glowing white-hot. The priests rallied, their voices breaking into desperate hymn. The demon howled inside me, thrashing, tearing, but the chains closed. The hooks drove deeper. My body convulsed, light pouring from wounds. And then everything went black. I woke in silence. No chains, no priests, no stone walls or screaming arbitrators. Only blackness. An endless void where the air itself pressed like cold iron. For a moment, I thought I was dead. Then the laughter came. It didn't echo. It multiplied. My own voice laughed beside me, above me, within me. Each laugh bent the air until the void fractured like glass. Cracks of red light split the blackness, spilling images I didn't want to see. Jaren's corpse, eyes glassy. Lena's face, streaked with soot and fear. My parents' wedding photo, their smiles eaten away by worms. Welcome home, the demon purred. Shapes crawled from the cracks, not bodies, possibilities. Versions of me twisted beyond recognition. One staggered forward, skin hanging loose, eyes gone, mouth stretched to the ribs. This is you without me, it whispered, voice wet. Another crawled, body bloated with tumors, teeth sprouting from its back. This is you resisting. A third strode tall and radiant, cloaked in fire, every step shaking the void. Its grin was wide and sharp. This is you with me. All three reached out. I stumbled back, my breath ragged. You're not me. None of you. The radiant ones smiled wider. Not yet. The demon stepped from the cracks. It wore my body. Not as I was, but as I could be. Taller, stronger, eyes burning like suns. Its mouth never closed, its teeth never ended. Behind it, wings of smoke spread wide, feathers dripping like tar. It raised a mirror, black and rimmed with bone. The surface shimmered, showing me chained to the altar, my flesh warping, priests screaming around me. This is what they see, it hissed. A weapon, a monster, not a man. They will never free you, Veynar. They will never love you. Only I can do that. The mirror cracked. The shards didn't fall. They hovered, circling me. Each shard reflected a different face. Me as a boy. Me as a worker, hands scarred from grinding wheels. Me with Lena, smiling for a moment of stolen peace. The demon swept its hand. The shards shattered. Memories ripped from me. I screamed as the pieces of my life dissolved into dust. You are nothing without me, it whispered. Let me fill the hollow. I fell to my knees. Memories slipped like sand. Jaren's voice dimmed. My parents' photo crumbled. Even Lena's face blurred at the edges. Panic clawed through me. If I lost those, what was left? The demon crouched, its grin inches from mine. Its breath smelled of rust and rot. Say my name. Bind yourself to me, and you will never feel empty again. The shards circled faster, slicing my arms, my chest. Each cut bled black. I clutched the largest shard left intact. My reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, mouth trembling, broken. Even if I am nothing, I whispered, I am not you. And I drove the shard into my palm. The void screamed. Light erupted from the wound, white, searing, pure. The shards recoiled. The daemon shrieked, staggering back as cracks split its skin, spilling black fire. No, it roared. You are mine. I staggered to my feet, blood running from my hand, the shard glowing in my grip. The faces in the shards flickered back. My parents, Jaren, Lena. Fragile, yes, but real. Mine. The demon lunged. Its wings beat storms of smoke and teeth. Its claws split the void. I raised the shard like a blade. You don't get to decide who I am. We collided. Claw met shard. Black fire clashed with white light. The void shattered, breaking into fragments of memory and madness. I screamed. It screamed. The sound became one. The mirror burst, shards slicing through us both. Pain tore through my body. No, my soul. My chest split, my mind split, everything split. And then, silence. I fell through nothing, down and down until my knees slammed stone. The smell of incense returned. The heat of chains seared my flesh again. My body lay on the altar, still bound, still glowing with fissures of light and shadow. The priests knelt, chanting desperately. The arbitrators huddled by the walls. The Inquisitor stood firm, rosette raised, sweat running down his face. His voice thundered, "What are you?" My mouth opened. Two voices answered. Veynar. Legion. They did not ask me again who I was. They decided. The decision tasted like oil and iron. Bind, not burn. I learned this from the way the Inquisitor's gaze settled. Measuring, not mourning. From the way the priests rolled out new chains instead of a pyre. From the tech priests filing in with mechadendrites unfurling like metal vines, thirsty for a throat. They spoke around me as if I were crate stenciling. Host exhibits dual vocalization. A psycher rasped, voice frayed by earlier contact, residual ego intact. Useful, the Inquisitor said, if it can be made to obey. If not, an arbitrator asked too softly. The Inquisitor did not look at him. Then we learn what its disobedience teaches, and ash what remains. The daemon grinned in my marrow. He sees you clearly. I prefer him to the weeping ones. They brought me to a different chamber. Lower. Older. Here the stone sweated pitch, and the wards etched in the walls were not the chapel's prayers, but diagrams that predated the creed. An iron frame stood at the center, half rack, half throne. Its armatures ended in syringes, spikes, rings of interlocking teeth that would bite when commanded and not relent. They stripped me. Holy oil hissed on my skin. The smell was knives. Look at me, the Inquisitor said. I did. His eyes were sleepless pits. A faint tremor rode one hand. He hid it behind his back. You will be bound, he said, not unkindly. You will be used. Between use and death there is a narrow path. Walk it and you might purchase meaning. I wanted a smaller meaning, I said, voice raw. A shift done. A quiet bunk. Those are luxuries, he said. We manufacture necessities. They bolted my limbs into the frame. The first ring closed at my throat. The room throbbed with machine cant. Tech priests' vox organs clicked out binharic invocations, while their mechadendrites tasted the air. Brass sensors dumped smoke until the world went fog-white. From the rafters, caged psychers keened. The sound of wires pulled too tight. Graft sequence, said a magos whose mouth was a grill. Needles slid home along my sternum. Cold fire flooded veins. Wards, ink like quicksilver, burned lines beneath my skin, knotting into nets that pinched the daemon when it bulged. It bulged anyway. The frame juddered. Containment field 3, the magos hissed. A second skin took me, thin, humming, made of angles that did not agree with each other. When it settled, my hair tried to lift away from my scalp and failed. The priests chanted, not hymns, formulae, words that tasted of dust and calculus. They wrote them on me with burning styluses until the lettering climbed my ribs, my neck, my face. My eyes watered. The tears steamed and left salt lines that flared like little flares before guttering. "Pretty," the demon murmured, amused. "Dress me in your sigils, little makers. I have worn crowns." The first electrode kissed my spine. I gasped. Light, wrong light, thin and blue as a blade, shot outward, outlining lattices I did not know the body held. My thoughts scattered and reassembled in an order I did not recognize. "Anchor point," someone said. "Anchor here." I felt hands inside my head, not touching the demon, but bracketing it. The psychers sang a single droning note and pushed. The demon bared all its teeth and pushed back. Between the forces, I shuddered like meat on a spit. "We require a true name," a priest managed. The Inquisitor leant over me, close enough that I could smell the copper on his breath. "You will not speak it," he told me, as if to himself. "He will. And when he does, it will be inside a cage." He nodded once. The magos drove a spike through my left palm. Searing, clarifying pain tore a clean tunnel through the fog. Air left me. Sound left me. Only the demon remained, vast and intimate, rearing up, delighted. At last it breathed. "Let us give them something to worship." It came up under my skin like a tide. My lips peeled back of their own accord. My tongue thickened, new ridges rising along it like script being embossed from below. The name, the not sound, approached my teeth. The frame's jaw brace snapped shut with a clang that climbed into my skull. The name hit iron and scattered into sparks that burned my throat raw. I gagged, choked, saw stars, tried to breathe them, failed, breathed smoke instead. "Again," the magos said. "Root it." Coils hummed. Runes along my arms woke like rows of eyes. The name rose again, hotter this time, angrier, thrust at my teeth, deflected, slid screaming along inscribed channels, seeking any other mouth. A grate in the floor glowed red. The name shot down into it and struck a warded reservoir that ate it like lye. The demon screamed amusement. "A clever pipe. Will you drown your own godling each time he tries to speak? We will see how long your reservoir holds." "Maintain pressure," the Inquisitor said, calm amid the hiss and stink. "Psychers, lace him." The caged men above me began to die. Not all. Enough. Their blood dripped on the iron, each drop opening an absence that drank the sound of the chamber. Thin filaments of thought unspooled from the dying and sank through my skin, stitching patterns the tech priests traced with their machine hands. A net within a net, their minds' last threads woven into a muzzle. I retched until nothing came up but a black spit that smelled of winter. Chains tightened. Hooks turned. The frame's teeth bit until bone complained. For a heartbeat, the demon went very still. It did not retreat. It positioned itself, like a beast assessing the length of a leash, then leaned forward until the leash sang. In me, and not in me, it inhaled. On the next breath, it burned. It was not heat. It was temperament given flame, pride as combustion, spite as a furnace. The wards flared, seared, held, barely. Sigils blackened, ink bubbled. My skin stank like roast prayer book. The frame shuddered. The air wavered. A tech adept stumbled as his mechadendrite curled and died with a pop of spit and copper. "Hold," the Inquisitor said. The demon pressed harder, and with it came the whisper of its world. Rivers flensing their banks, mountains peeling like fruit, a sky stitched shut and then torn open by laughing hands. My mouth tried to laugh. The brace kept it shut. Name, it breathed into my blood. Name, I will wear your bones to the syllables of me. No, I thought, because my mouth could not. No, take the iron, take the chalk, take the dead men's threads. I am still here. For a slender second, there was only my breath and the sound of 1,000 little scratches as the wards wrote and rewrote and wrote again. The demon's heat eased by one breath. Then the machine count rose. The coils throbbed. The frame clamped a last ring around my throat, and the magos intoned, "Bonding complete." Silence fell. Not true silence. Vents sighed, flesh hissed, but the kind that means everyone present is deciding not to speak until the decision is safe to say aloud. The Inquisitor stepped close. He peered into my eyes as if the pupils themselves might carry an answer. "What are you?" he asked again. The brace ratcheted back a finger's width. My jaw trembled. Pain sang. Words crowded my tongue. Two voices, both bleeding. "Veynar," I said. "Legion," the other said. The Inquisitor exhaled, long. "Both." He straightened, and his voice hardened into an order the room understood without liking. Catalogue patterning. Fit the yoke. The yoke was a gorget of black iron etched deeper than skin. Collar, jaw hooks, occipital pins that sank and seated with a sensation like a cold nail choosing its favorite piece of wood. When it locked, something in my peripheral vision dimmed. The world lost a color I had never named. "This device," the magos said tonelessly, "routes high-energy emissions to safe sinks. Adjustments possible mid-engagement." "Mid-engagement," I repeated, throat raw. The Inquisitor's mouth did not move. "You wanted smaller meanings," he said, still not unkind. "You may yet have a small one. Survive the next hour." Arbitrators unbolted the frame. Chains remained. The yoke's leash spooled through a jailer's fist, attached to a winch that could crack my neck faster than any instinct. When they hauled me upright, the demon rolled within the cage like a cat under a hand that has not yet learned where it may be bitten. "We are dressed for war," it purred. They marched me through a corridor that hummed with voices. Through slitted windows I saw night and, in it, city, stacks and spires and the long smear of fire from the dormitory they had not finished hosing down. Drums beat somewhere, boots on grating. Tiny white lights bobbed like fish hauled along a dark current. A column of guardsmen mobilizing, faces small and resolute. At the embarkation bay, a chimera idled, its hatch open like a mouth. Inside, shock troops tight-jawed, a confessor clutching a travel altar, a tech adept with a case of spare sigils, and a coil of cable that looked like a serpent too tired to strike. The Inquisitor paused at the ramp. He looked up, past me, as if through the hive's roofs, through its smoke, to a sky he did not trust. Then he looked at me. "Daemonhost Veynar," he said, saying the blasphemy like a serial number. "You will proceed to sub-level Acheron and breach the cult vault. You will not speak. You will not taste. You will not take more than I give. If you do, the yoke will close, and your last sensation will be the inside of your own skull breaking." The demon shivered with pleasure. "Promises." "And if I obey," I asked, voice a thread, "then you will live long enough to be used again." He gestured. The leash tugged. The hatch yawned. Lena's pendant flashed in my head, Jaren's hand slipping, my parents' photograph eaten by worms and pieced back together with a shard of mirror. Small meaning, I told myself, and put my foot on the ramp. The chimera's interior smelled of oil, sanctified wax and fear. The hatch slammed. Engines roared. Somewhere below us, something in the hive woke up to listen. The chimera shuddered as it plunged through the hive's underbelly. Every bump rattled chains against my collar, each clink like a clock counting down to something I couldn't name. Across from me, shock troops sat with helmets clutched in white-knuckled fists. They didn't look at me. They looked at the floor or at the priest hunched over his travel altar, whispering liturgies that tasted of iron in the air. The demon purred under my skin, restless. They smell of fear. It thickens the blood. Let us drink it. I closed my eyes. I thought of my parents' photograph, of Lena's trembling hands, the pendant, the smile that had never reached her eyes. The collar buzzed. A reminder. A leash. When I opened my eyes again, the Inquisitor was watching me, his face unreadable. "Remember," he said softly, "just for me. You are not here to live. You are here to function." The chimera ground to a halt. The hatch yawned. Heat and ash poured in, thick with the stink of promethium. We disembarked into sub-level Acheron, a cavernous stretch of the hive drowned in red lumen light. Wards were painted across the walls in blood, jagged sigils that writhed as if alive. The cult had claimed this place long before the arbitrators realized. I felt them, behind the wards. 100 voices, chanting in a language not meant for throats of meat. Each syllable brushed against my teeth like insects crawling inside. "They call me," the demon whispered hungrily. "They call us." The collar tightened. Pain flared down my spine. I stumbled, gasping. The tech adept tugged the leash. "Forward," the Inquisitor ordered. The vault loomed at the far end of the chamber. Iron doors taller than any manufacturing gate, carved with screaming faces. Chains dangled from their surface, ending in skulls that grinned as if freshly flensed. The chanting pulsed louder here, seeping through cracks in the metal. Shock troops fanned out, flamers at the ready. The priest raised his altar high, his voice trembling through litany. "By his light may the unclean falter." The doors laughed. A vibration in the steel, rattling teeth, chattering bones. The sound crawled into my ears, and the demon answered in kind, roaring with joy. My knees buckled, my chains snapped taut. "Now," the Inquisitor said. The leash slackened. The collar hummed but did not choke. Permission. I didn't want to move, but my body did. The demon surged, my limbs stretching, skin crawling with fire. Fingers split into claws, runes flaring along my arms. My mouth opened wider than bone allowed, and the laughter of the vault was drowned by the scream that tore from my throat. Shock troops staggered back. One dropped his flamer, muttering, "Throne, preserve us." The demon seized my legs, dragging me forward. My hands slammed against the vault doors. Metal burned under my palms, warping, melting, dripping like wax. The screaming faces twisted in agony. The doors shuddered. "Breaching," the tech adept muttered, voice reverent and horrified all at once. The collar buzzed, trying to hold me in check. Sparks sprayed from its runes. My spine arched. The demon shrieked, not in pain, but in triumph. "More, give me more." The doors burst inward. The cult chamber blazed with firelight and shadow. Dozens of robed figures stood in concentric circles, chanting, knives raised. Their eyes glowed with warp light, mouths stretched too wide. At the center, an altar of bone rose high, and on it, a child. Bound, gagged, eyes wide with terror. The demon lunged. My body moved like a storm. Chains of flesh burst from my arms, wrapping around cultists and snapping their spines with wet cracks. My claws ripped through robes, through ribs, spraying blood across the altar. A gout of fire poured from my mouth, engulfing a half-dozen more. Screams, chanting breaking into panic, blood steaming on stone. Shock troops opened fire, bolters barking. But every time my body surged forward faster, they weren't fighting with me. They were scrambling to keep up. The child shrieked against the gag. "Take it," the demon hissed. "Take the offering. It is ours. No, I croaked inside my skull. My own voice. Small, almost lost in the roar. I staggered. My claws hovered over the child. My breath reeked of fire, my teeth dripping warp spittle. The collar tightened. Runes flared. My spine snapped backward in agony, dragging me away from the altar. The Inquisitor's voice cut through the smoke. Hold the line, keep it leashed. Shock troops surged past, guns roaring, cutting down the remaining cultists. The priest raised his altar, shouting prayers until his voice cracked. The chamber filled with gunfire, screams, and the demon's furious wail inside me. The child wept, alive. When silence fell, the chamber stank of blood and smoke. Corpses twitched where the warp had twisted them. Shock troops avoided my eyes. Some refused to look at me at all. The priest clutched his altar, whispering hoarse prayers. The Inquisitor stood in the carnage, watching me with that same measuring gaze. Effective, he said. Not praise, not condemnation. A statement like recording a fact in a ledger. The demon chuckled, low and eager. See? Even now they keep you. Even now they call you useful. The leash will break, and when it does, I will feast on more than cultists. The collar hummed. Pain surged down my spine, silencing it. Barely. I collapsed to my knees. My hands were still claws, slick with blood. The child's eyes fixed on me, wide with terror, as if I was the monster, not the cultists. And maybe she was right. They stopped looking at me like a man. On the ride back from sub-level Acheron, no one sat near. The priest pressed himself against the Chimera's wall, clutching his travel altar as if it might bloom into a shield. The shock troops kept their helms on, visors sealed, silent as statues. Only the Inquisitor met my gaze. He studied me with those sleepless pits of eyes, always calculating, never blinking. Function achieved, he said at last. Casualties minimal. The demon laughed softly in my marrow. Casualties minimal, it mimicked. Voice dripping with glee. Does he count the ones who screamed when I peeled them? Does he measure the child's eyes when she looked at us? I clenched my jaw until my teeth cracked. The collar buzzed in warning. They gave me no rest. Not 2 days later they marched me again, chains rattling, collar humming. A manufacturum district this time. Reports of cult activity. The tech priest adjusted my yoke as if tuning a machine. Resonance unstable, he muttered. Leash must be shortened. The Inquisitor shook his head. Let him run long. Fear is useful. The demon preened at that. Fear is the perfume of power. Let them breathe it until their lungs rot. The manufacturum smelled of oil and dust. Rows of conveyor lines sat silent, rusting. Workers huddled at the far walls, eyes wide, chained together by arbitrators who flinched whenever my claws scraped the floor. The cultists revealed themselves quickly. Warp fire burst from the gantries. A dozen men with flayed skin hanging from their arms leapt screaming from the shadows. The demons surged before I could think. My body moved, fluid, perfect. Claws gutted the first, spine snapping with a wet crack. My mouth opened, spewing fire that engulfed 3 more. A flayed man's knife slashed at my side. I barely felt it as I crushed his head in my hand like rotten fruit. Every motion elegant, every kill intoxicating, and none of it mine. Inside, I screamed. I begged to stop, but the demon was driving, every nerve its puppet string. See how they scatter? It purred. See how they scream? This is what you could have been without chains. A god among cattle. No, I hissed through blood. I am not. But my body roared with joy, drowning me out. The cultists broke, their leader chanting until his throat split open. Warp light exploded from his chest, birthing something with too many arms and no face. The demon howled laughter. Finally, something worth my claws. We leapt together. Claws met limbs. Fire met shadow. The creature screeched in pitches that cracked lumen strips and burst eardrums. Workers wailed. Arbitrators fired uselessly. The demon drank it all in. Each scream fed its frenzy. Each slash thrilled it. My body twisted, bones cracking, ribs opening like a cage to release black flame. The thing died in pieces. The demon whispered, shivering with delight. More, more, give me more. When silence fell, the manufactorum was painted red. The workers huddled against the walls, not cheering, not relieved, silent, pale, terrified. One woman clutched her child, whispering prayers through tears. The boy looked at me the way the child in the vault had looked, wide-eyed, hollow, certain that I was the monster. The demon drank in his terror, sighing with contentment. Do you see, Veynar? They know what you are. They know better than you do. I sank to my knees, trembling. My hands were claws slick with gore. My face felt split in two, man on one side, beast on the other. The collar buzzed. Pain lanced my spine, pulling me back from the brink. The demon snarled but retreated, curling in the dark like a satisfied predator after a kill. Later in the chimera, I felt hollow, empty. The priest refused to look at me. His voice was hoarse from prayer, lips cracked, eyes bloodshot. The shock troops cleaned their weapons with shaking hands, silent. One muttered, thinking I couldn't hear. Better the demon on our side than against us. Another hissed back. For how long? The Inquisitor wrote notes in silence, his quill scratching steady as a heartbeat. The demon chuckled softly, stretching inside my bones. For how long? Forever, little soldier. Forever until there is nothing left but us. I tried to sleep. I dreamed of strings, thick black cords threading my limbs, my mouth, my eyes. Above me, a vast hand plucked them, making me dance, making me kill. Every motion perfect, every step inevitable. At the edges of the dream, faces stared. Jaren, Lena, my parents, silent, watching me dance. I screamed to break free. The strings only pulled tighter. When I woke, the demon whispered a single phrase, soft and cruel. It is easier when you stop pretending. And I realized, horrified, that for a heartbeat in the manufactorum I hadn't pretended. I had enjoyed it. I found silence in the strangest places. Not in my bunk. The chains rattled even in sleep, and the demon's whispers filled the dark. Not in the chimera. The engines growled, and the men's fear leaked through the vents like incense. But sometimes, in the moments after slaughter, when the screams had faded and the blood still steamed, there came a breath of stillness. And in that breath, I almost felt human. In one such silence, I remembered my parents' photo. I saw my father's rough hands, scarred from years in the manufactorum, wrapped tight around my mother's waist. Their smiles were genuine. Naive, yes, but real. Belief that the Imperium's weight might leave them something better than scraps. That photo had survived my childhood, survived the endless grime of Gamma 7. I used to polish the frame when I was a boy, as if cleaning it would polish the memory too. Now, in the stillness, I clung to it. Ashes, the demon hissed. They are ashes, Veynar. Dust blown into a void. You pray to shadows of shadows. I am the only memory that will never fade. I shook, chains clattering, until a guard slammed his shock maul against the bars. Quiet, creature! The demon laughed, loud enough that the guard recoiled, sweat beading his brow. But inside, behind the laughter, I whispered to myself, I am still here. The next mission blurred. Cultists in a shrine. A dozen screaming, faces hidden by flayed skin, stitched into masks. The demon surged, claws tearing, flame pouring. My body became weapon again, every kill perfect, efficient, grotesque. But in the middle of it, as I raised my claw to sever a man's head, I saw Lena's eyes instead of his. Wide, pleading, filled with fear and trust in equal measure. My hand trembled. The demon snarled, "Strike!" I hesitated, long enough for the cultist's blade to score my side. Pain flared. The collar buzzed, dragging me back into the demon's rhythm. The claw fell, head parted from neck, blood fountained. But for that one heartbeat I had resisted. And in that resistance, I knew I was not gone. Not yet. That night in the Chimera, I prayed. Softly, so the soldiers would not hear. A child's prayer, the kind drilled into us in the schola. Emperor, light of terror, shield me from the shadows. The demon's laughter drowned me out. He cannot hear you. He never could. If he heard, would you be here, caged and chained, burning in pieces? But I kept whispering, every word an act of defiance, even if no one listened. The Inquisitor noticed. He stood in the shadows of the Chimera, eyes unreadable, watching my lips move. "You pray," he said flatly. "Yes," I rasped. "To what end?" "So I don't forget." His gaze lingered. "Good. Remember, even the damned may serve." The daemon sneered. "He tells you to remember because he wants your memories to be another chain. Even your faith is just another leash." I clenched my fists until the claws bit flesh. The cracks in me grew. Sometimes I smelled rain on hab-block roofs, even in the dungeon's stench. Sometimes I tasted real food, not corpse starch, not blood on my tongue. Sometimes I felt Jaren's hand on my shoulder, steady and warm, even though I had watched him fall. Each flicker was agony. Each flicker was precious, and each flicker was mocked. "You cling to ghosts," the demon whispered. "You cling to rot. You could be eternal. You could be remembered as fire, not forgotten as ash." I whispered back, "Better ash than you." The priests must have sensed the flickers. They gathered one night, their whispers carrying through the dungeon. Words like purge, trial, exorcism. The demon shivered with anticipation. Yes, let them try. Their prayers will be tinder. Their faith will ignite me brighter than ever. I sagged against my chains, terrified, hopeful. Because maybe, just maybe, the prayers would reach. Maybe the Emperor would hear. They brought me into the cathedral at dawn. Chains bit my wrists, sanctified iron glowing with inscriptions. Hooded priests lined the nave, their chants vibrating the very stones. Stained glass cast crimson and gold patterns across the marble floor. But all I saw were the shadows writhing behind them, hungry and eager. I smelled incense, sweet, choking, smothering. It clung to my throat until I gagged, and beneath it all, I smelled the demon's joy. Ah, at last, it purred. They will draw me out, they think. They will burn me away. Fools. They are kindling, and I am flame. They set me at the center of a circle carved deep into the floor. Runes of warding, reinforced by blood sacrifices I dared not question. A canoness approached, her face hard as carved stone. She looked at me as if weighing whether I was worth the effort. "You are a vessel defiled," she said. "But even the most corrupted can be offered one final chance. If the Emperor wills it, you may be purged. If not..." She let the silence finish her sentence. My throat cracked. If he wills it, let him see me. The demon laughed, loud enough the priests flinched. Oh, he will see you, little vessel. He will watch you burn. The ritual began. Psychers stood at the cardinal points, their eyes already bleeding from the strain of holding back my corruption. They chanted litanies older than the Imperium itself, their voices rising in unison with the booming hymns of the choir. A relic was brought forward, a shard of a saint's femur, housed in a golden reliquary. Its presence made my skin blister. The demon hissed and recoiled. It burns, deliciously. The canoness raised her voice, each word a hammer blow. By his light we cast you out. By his will we deny you form. By his flame we cleanse the corruption. At first I dared to believe. The wards glowed, my skin steamed. The demon shrieked in a way I had never heard, pierced, rattled, wounded. I wept. My voice broke as I whispered, Emperor, hear me. But then the shriek became laughter. Yes, louder. Call him louder. Feed me more of this sweet devotion. The psychers faltered. One collapsed, blood spraying from his ears. Another screamed as his body bent backward, spine snapping with a wet crack. The wards flickered. The demon roared through me. You pray and you pray, but your prayers are hollow. All of this, fuel for me. The cathedral shook. Statues cracked. Stained glass burst inward, shards raining like knives. The reliquary glowed too brightly, then shattered into dust. The canoness fell to her knees, clutching the remnants, her voice breaking in despair. The surviving psychers tried to hold the circle. Their veins glowed, warp light bleeding from their mouths. One by one, they popped like overripe fruit, spraying gore across the marble. And I felt it. Power surging, uncontainable. The demon drinking it all in. I screamed, not in pain, not in terror, but in sheer defiance. No, not like this, not through me. But the demon only pressed harder, forcing my mouth into its laughter, my body into its posture of triumph. This is your emperor's gift to me. Every soul in this place is mine to consume. You asked him to see you, Veynar. He sees you now, and he abandons you. The wards shattered with a thunderclap. Warp fire erupted from the circle, licking across the pews. Priests combusted mid-prayer, their hymns turning into shrieks. The choir's voices warped into a single, terrible chord that seemed to echo through every bone in my body. The canoness rose, her armor cracked, her eyes burning with stubborn faith. She raised her bolter at me, finger on the trigger. For a heartbeat, I thought she might end it, might save me. But the demon whispered into her ears too, and her eyes widened in horror before the flames consumed her. When the smoke cleared, the cathedral was a ruin. Stone melted like wax, pews charred to ash. Dozens of corpses lay scattered, their faces locked in expressions of rapture and terror. And I stood unburned in the center, chains broken, my veins glowing like molten rivers. The daemon's voice thundered through me, shaking the air. Stronger, so much stronger. Their faith is mine, their prayers mine, their deaths mine. No more whispers, vessel. I am you, and you are me. I fell to my knees, clutching my head, trying to hold on to the last flicker of me. But the demon laughed, filling every corner of my skull. They dragged me from the cathedral ruins like carrion. I do not remember how I walked. I only remember the smell. Burned flesh, holy oils turned to smoke, incense now nothing more than soot in my lungs. The priests who had lived long enough to drag me from the circle would not look at me. Their eyes slid over me as if I was already gone, a shadow moving among them, not a man. The demon purred in my skull. We have shed their chains. Now we make our own. I felt it begin that night. My reflection in the transport's cracked mirror was no longer mine. The scar across my cheek had split open, weeping black ichor that crawled down my jaw like living ink. My eyes burned with an inner light, pupils fractured into shards that spun like broken glass. I touched the glass, and the glass melted beneath my hand. I jerked back, horrified. The demon chuckled. Do not recoil, vessel. This is not corruption. This is ascension. My body betrayed me in fragments at first, claws where fingers should be. My spine arched too far, bones grinding like iron gears. Teeth lengthened until my gums tore, blood mixing with warp light as it dripped down my chin. The guards recoiled when they saw. One raised his laser gun. The Inquisitor's voice stopped him cold. Not yet. Not yet. The words struck deeper than any blade. By the second night, wings tore free from my back. Not feathered, not even leathery. Wings of smoke. They writhed and unfurled, burning the air with every flicker. Shadows lengthened when I moved, even in total darkness. The demon exulted. Yes, spread wide. They will see us now. They will worship what they fear. I screamed as the wings burned, begged for someone to cut them off. But the chains only rattled, and the guards prayed under their breath, unable to meet my eyes. They confined me in a cell deep beneath the bastion. Wards glowed faintly, flickering whenever I moved. Servo skulls hovered, recording every convulsion, every distortion. At times I caught my reflection in their lenses, horns curving from my temples, smoke coiling where my breath should be, veins crawling with fire. The demon whispered, "Look at us. Look at the divinity we are becoming. Do you see weakness here? Do you see man? Number? You see destiny." I slammed my head against the wall until blood streamed down. I see a monster. And monsters endure, it laughed. They tested me. First, a squad of stormtroopers armed with sanctified rounds. They entered the cell in formation, barrels trained on me. The demon stretched, delighted. "By the throne's decree," their leader barked, "you will be purged." My voice cracked as I tried to warn them. "Run!" Then the demon surged. Claws tore through armor. Warp fire erupted from my mouth. A scream turned into a lance of burning light. Men who had faced heretics and traitors without fear dropped their weapons and begged, voices lost in the roar. When it ended, the walls dripped with melted ceramite, and their bodies were blackened husks, and I was laughing. Not I, we. The Inquisitor watched from behind a warded gate. His expression did not change as the smoke cleared, as the corpses cooled. His words were delivered with the weight of a judge's gavel. This is no longer possession. This is transformation. The demon preened. He sees us. He knows what we are becoming. Soon, they will have no choice but to bow. I caught sight of myself in the cell's mirrored shard, left cracked from some forgotten experiment. No human remained. A face stretched too long, horns splitting skin, wings of smoke coiling behind me like living storms. Flame danced along my veins, visible through skin now translucent as glass. My mouth was too wide, teeth too many, but worst were the eyes. They were not mine. They were endless voids rimmed with fire, and staring into them, I could not tell where I ended and the demon began. "Emperor," I whispered, "please, take me." The demon roared with laughter so loud the cell shook. "He has already abandoned you, Veynar. There is no taking, no mercy. Only me. Only us." That night, the dreams changed. I no longer dreamed of childhood. I no longer dreamed of Lena's eyes or the sound of rain. Those memories slipped away like sand, scattered on a wind I could not stop. Now I dreamed of slaughter, oceans of blood, thrones of skulls stacked higher than spires, whole worlds screaming my name, not Veynar, not the man I had been, but the thing I was becoming. The demon crooned through the dream. Soon they will set us loose, and you will know joy, eternal joy in their screams. When I woke, the Inquisitor stood outside my cell. Behind him, acolytes carried data slates, their faces pale with horror. He spoke quietly, but his voice carried finality. You are no longer a man. You are no longer even a prisoner. You are a weapon too dangerous to wield. The verdict will be delivered soon. The demon pressed its grin through my mouth, teeth flashing like knives. Verdict? There is no verdict. There is only the inevitable. They assembled in the chamber of judgment 3 nights later. I was dragged there in chains thicker than my torso, every link etched with wards that burned my skin. The air reeked of incense and blood offerings, sacrifices already made in the vain hope these bindings could hold me. Servo skulls buzzed overhead, their red eyes recording every tremor, every twitch of my corrupted body. At the dais stood the Inquisitor. His face was carved from stone, his robes heavy with purity seals that fluttered in the stale air. To either side, priests and tech adepts murmured litanies of warding, their voices trembling. Behind them, soldiers stood ready, not out of courage, but because obedience was all that kept them from fleeing. The verdict came without preamble. You are no longer Guardsman Veynar, the Inquisitor said, his tone flat, judicial. You are an instrument of the warp, a demon in flesh. Your existence threatens not only this world, but every soul within its reach. I bowed my head, chains rattling. Somewhere inside, the last ember of myself whispered, "End it. Please. End it." But the demon hissed through my lips, its voice a chorus layered over mine. Threatens, number, ensures. We are not a danger, we are inevitability. You can burn this world, and still we will rise from the ashes. The canoness, her armor scarred from the failed exorcism, stepped forward. Her voice cracked, but did not break. "Exterminatus," she said. "Purge the world. It is tainted already. Every hour this creature draws breath spreads corruption." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even the hardened soldiers paled. The word was heavy, final. A world scoured clean, millions burned for the crime of sheltering me. The Inquisitor inclined his head slightly. "Exterminatus is already authorized. Orbital assets await my command." The ember inside me howled. Not just me then, everyone, Lena's world. Families, children, prayers whispered in hab blocks, all snuffed out because of me. The demon purred, luxuriating in my despair. "Yes, let them burn. Their ashes will feed me. Their screams will be your lullaby." But the Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. He studied me with the precision of a surgeon, and for the first time I saw something flicker in his gaze. Not mercy, not pity, but calculation. "Exterminatus is the Emperor's hammer," he said, "but a hammer must fall at the right moment." He gestured to the priests. "Until then it will be caged." They brought stasis chains. I had heard of them only in whispers, devices that froze not the body, but the very soul. When they clasped them around my limbs, I felt time shudder. My breath caught in my throat, half drawn, half held forever. My heart beat once, and then again only when they allowed it. The demon snarled, furious. "These toys will not hold me. They bind you, vessel, Not me. You will wither, and I will remain. But I felt it too, the chains holding it. Not forever, not fully, but enough. Its voice dulled to a hiss, its laughter muffled like thunder behind stone. And for the first time in weeks, the silence was mine. I used it. With every shred of will, I whispered a prayer. Not aloud, not with lips or tongue, but with thought alone. Emperor, if you see me, if you hear me, take them instead. Not the world, not the millions. Take me. The ember burned brighter for a moment, a fragile light in the dark. The demon hissed, furious. You dare offer yourself? You dare deny me? Yes, I thought, because I remember. And for that heartbeat, I believed he heard. The Inquisitor spoke again, voice carrying over the murmurs of the assembly. This creature will be preserved in stasis until its destruction is certain. Its existence is both a liability and a lesson. Let all who see it know, the demon-possessed have only 3 ends: fire, chains, or eternal silence. The soldiers crossed themselves, the priests wept, and I smiled, just faintly, because even bound, even judged, I was still me, for now. But stasis was not sleep. Inside the chains, time became fractured, seconds stretched into centuries, thoughts echoed too loud, too sharp, and in that timeless silence, the daemon began to stir again, not with rage, not with fury, but with patience. You can cling to silence, it whispered, voice slow as dripping venom, but silence cannot last. I am eternal, and when the chains falter, when the world burns, I will not whisper, I will roar. The ember inside me flickered. Could I resist forever? Could I hold even a fragment of myself when eternity pressed down like stone? In the frozen dark, I saw Lena's eyes again, saw the rain on steel roofs, heard my father's laugh, each memory fragile, each one slipping further away, and the demon's grin widened in the dark. The chains froze my body, but my mind could not rest. Time had no rhythm inside stasis. One moment stretched into an eternity, then collapsed into nothing. I could not tell if hours passed or centuries. My body did not age. My heart did not beat except when the machine permitted. But my thoughts, the demon's thoughts, never stopped. And slowly the silence cracked. It began with whispers. Not the demon's usual mockery, but echoes of memory. My father's voice. You'll be stronger than me, son. Lena's laughter, sharp, warm, alive. Rain drumming on hab-block steel, a sound so rare it had been sacred. I clung to them, each one a nail hammered into the coffin of despair. But the demon was there too, always watching, always waiting. Pretty ghosts, it murmured, its voice soft as silk. Do you think they can shield you? Do you think the dead remember you? I clenched my mind tight around the laughter, around the rain. Yes. Then let us test it. The chamber dissolved. Stone and chains fell away, and I was standing in a landscape not real, not physical. The warp's parody of a memory, my childhood manufactorum. The grinding wheels shrieked. Sparks fell like fire rain, but the sky above was wrong. Veins of red lightning crawling across black flesh, and from the shadows stepped myself, or rather the reflection. My face stretched too long, eyes burning, wings of smoke unfurling behind it. Its grin was my grin, twisted beyond recognition. This is what you are, it said. This is what you become when the masks fall. I spat blood that wasn't there. I am Veynar, guardsman, son, lover, human. The demon's laugh rattled the full sky. Number, you are vessel. Shell, I am the marrow inside your bones. Every prayer, every tear, every heartbeat. Mine. You resist, but resistance is just another way of feeding me. The world shifted again. I was standing in the cathedral, but whole this time, before it burned. Choirs sang, light spilled through unbroken glass. My mother knelt in the pews, smiling, beckoning me closer. For a moment I wept. Mother. But when I touched her shoulder, she turned, and her face was a skull of fire. Her voice was the demon's. Every memory is mine. Every love, every warmth. I will wear their faces until you can no longer tell the difference. I screamed, tearing my hands away, but the fire spread up my arms, into my chest. Stop, I begged. Please, let me keep something. The demon's grin widened. Let us duel then. Memory for memory. Flesh for soul. If you can hold even one moment against me, you may call yourself human still. Fail, and you are gone. The false cathedral dissolved into a wasteland of black sand and broken stars. It began the duel with my first day in the guard, my comrades laughing, slapping my back after a successful drill. I felt the pride, the belonging. The demon's claw tore through the memory, shredding faces into ash. They died screaming, remember? And you could not save them. Then it pulled Lena forward, her face luminous, her eyes filled with trust. I clutched her hand, desperate. The daemon whispered into her ear, and her expression twisted into revulsion. She never loved you, vessel. She saw the rot before you did. That is why she left. No, I rasped. That's a lie. Truth. Memory reshaped. What is the difference? I fought back with rain. That simple, pure sound on the steel roofs of the hab blocks. I let it fill me, let it wash the ash away. For a moment, it worked. The demon hissed, recoiling. But then the rain thickened, turned red. Drops became blood, pattering against my skin, filling my mouth with iron. The demon leaned close, grinning with my teeth. Every beauty ends in horror when I touch it, and I touch everything. I fell to my knees. Memories slipped through my fingers like sand. My parents' faces blurred. My comrades' names faded. Even Lena's smile, once bright as dawn, flickered until only shadows remained. The demon's laughter rolled across the false wasteland, vast and merciless. You are not a man clinging to humanity. You are a shadow pretending to be light, and I am the truth beneath it all. Still, some ember smoldered. I whispered the words I had clung to since childhood. The Emperor protects. The demon's grin faltered, just for an instant. Then it lunged. Its claws tore through the wasteland, through my chest, through the last ember. I screamed as memories burst apart like shattering glass. Faces, laughter, rain, all crushed beneath its hand. The demon pressed its forehead against mine, voice a whisper and a roar. The Emperor does not protect you, Veynar. He never did. I am your only truth. The wasteland fell silent, and I realized I could no longer remember Lena's face, could no longer hear the rain, could no longer taste real food, or smell the manufacturer oil, or hear my father's laugh. They were gone. All that remained was the demon's voice. The stasis field faltered. No alarm sounded, no sudden rupture, just a flicker, a single beat of silence breaking. My chest heaved, a breath that should not have been possible in the frozen stillness. My heart struck once, too loud, too heavy. Then again, then again. The demon's laughter bled through the chains. Do you feel it, vessel? The end of silence, the end of cages, the hour of becoming, Outside the chamber, I felt them stir. Acolytes monitoring the machines glanced at flickering glyphs. A tech adept whispered about power fluctuations. Soldiers shifted uneasily, laser guns trembling in their hands. They did not know the truth. They thought it was another mechanical failure. But in the pit of my soul, I knew. The chains weren't breaking. They were rotting. The demon's patience had hollowed them out from the inside. And now, nothing could hold us. The first scream came from the servo skulls. One after another, their optics burst in showers of sparks. Data streams devolved into shrieking binary. The acolytes panicked, trying to reroute power, trying to restore the stasis field. Too late. The air thickened, folding into itself. The walls bled rust. Candles guttered in wind that had no source. Every holy seal burned black, and I rose. The chains fell like dust. My body no longer obeyed mortal anatomy. Horns split my skull, curling like molten iron. My spine cracked, lengthened, sprouting smoke wings that unfurled across the chamber like storm clouds. Skin blistered and sloughed away, revealing flesh lit by black flame beneath. I screamed, but it was not my voice. It was the demons, and the scream was not pain, but triumph. The acolytes broke first. Some fled, prayers tumbling from their lips. Others fell to their knees, begging the Emperor for mercy that would not come. Their deaths were swift. Claws lashed out, severing heads. Warp fire erupted from my eyes, burning flesh to cinder. Their bodies collapsed, twitching in silent rhythm with the warp's pulse. The demon exulted. At last, the choir sings only for us. At last, your ashes are mine to shape. I felt myself slipping, swallowed in the flood. My thoughts barely surfaced in the torrent. Stop. Please. Don't let this be me. But even those words were drowned in the demon's joy. There is no you, Veynar. Only us. Only eternity. The soldiers stormed the chamber. Bolters thundered, laser guns seared. The air filled with fire. It did nothing. The rounds melted mid-flight. The beams bent, curving into spirals before winking out. Their weapons betrayed them, warped by the tide I carried. We slaughtered them. Wings of smoke crushed bones to powder. Claws split armor like parchment. Their screams fed the fire, every death a hymn in the demon's ascension. The chamber walls groaned, reality itself bowing under the strain. Through it all, the Inquisitor stood, unmoving, unflinching. His eyes locked on me, not with fear, but with grim recognition. He raised a relic blade etched in silver wards, the weight of 10,000 oaths heavy in his stance. For the Imperium, he whispered. He charged. The demon laughed, surging to meet him. The clash rang out like thunder. His blade cut deep, slicing flesh that boiled but would not die. Warp fire hurled him back, but he rose again, robes aflame, face burned raw, eyes still sharp. He was a man alone against the storm. And for a heartbeat, something inside me stirred. Defiance. Not his. Mine. I saw his eyes, full of will stronger than chains, stronger than faith. He fought knowing he would lose. Fought because someone had to. For that flicker, I remembered being human. But the demon crushed it. It surged, ripping me from myself. My last fragments, Lena's smile, my father's laugh, the sound of rain, torn and devoured. And then I was gone. Only the daemon remained. The chamber erupted in light. Walls cracked, the ceiling split, spilling warp light into the fortress above. Reality screamed as the demon spread its wings, vast as shadow, vast as flame. The Inquisitor fell to his knees, blade broken, blood streaming. His last words echoed in the collapsing chamber. Emperor, Forgive us all. The breach widened. Through it I glimpsed shapes too vast to name. Things pressing against the wound in reality, hungry, eager, laughing. The air filled with whispers of names not meant for mortal tongues. The fortress, the city, the world trembled. And in the roar of the daemon's triumph, one thought lingered. Not mine, not human, but the demon's. I am free. The breach did not remain in the chamber. It spread. First through the fortress walls, devouring stone as if it were paper. Then into the hive itself, racing along transit rails and hab tunnels, warping the world in ripples of impossible geometry. Citizens fell to their knees in the streets, screaming in voices not their own. Infants wailed with the speech of ancients long dead. Priests in their temples clawed their own eyes out, as stained glass windows wept blood. The sky split. Clouds twisted into vortexes, sucking in ash and smoke. A second sun burned above the hive, but its light was black fire, casting shadows that writhed with lives of their own. The ocean boiled. Fish with too many eyes leapt screaming onto the shore, then burst into swarms of flies. The Inquisitor stood at the heart of the maelstrom, his broken relic blade in hand, whispering prayers into the void. His lips bled with every word, yet still he spoke, refusing to fall silent. But we were beyond him. Wings of smoke unfurled, spanning the sky. My shadow engulfed entire districts. Every scream fed the demon, every prayer inverted into laughter. They burn for us, it thundered. Every voice, every death, another hymn to our ascension. The Emperor himself will hear, and he will tremble. The hive's spires collapsed inward, drawn into the wound. Millions died without a mark upon their flesh. Their souls ripped free and dragged into the torrent. Children vanished mid-step. Lovers clutched one another as they dissolved into ash. Whole manufactorums folded into themselves, machines shrieking as they twisted into towers of bone and fire. The world itself cried out. Earthquakes tore valleys open, rivers of molten warp light pouring through. Orbiting defense platforms malfunctioned, their machine spirits keening as they turned weapons inward, bombarding the hive they had sworn to protect. The Inquisitor made his final choice. His voice rang out across the Vox, firm even as his body burned. Exterminatus, for the Emperor. And the skies answered. Orbital bombardment fell like the wrath of a god. Lances of fire scoured the hive, vaporizing millions, collapsing towers into glass and smoke. The world burned from above even as it bled from within. The demon only laughed. Yes, burn it. Scour it clean. All fire feeds me. All endings are mine. And as the fire rained, I felt the last thread of me snap. The hive of Crichton Primus ceased to exist within 2 hours. Orbital pict feeds record the city folding inward as if consumed by a singularity. Civilian casualties, incalculable. Estimated loss, 15 million. Secondary contamination spread across continental plates. Oceans boiled, atmosphere destabilized. Warp echoes audible as far as the outer defense stations. Exterminatus initiated. Cyclonic torpedoes reduced the world to ash. Planetary designation, Paditzia. Quarantined. Stricken from Imperial record. There is no redemption for the demon-possessed. We burned a world to kill one man. And even then, I am not certain we succeeded. I learnt that the possessed have 3 ends only. Burned. By fire. Until nothing remains but ash, bound in chains, in silence, until the chains falter, broken. When the daemon fully takes them, leaving no trace of the human that once was. These are not choices. They are inevitabilities. None are mercy. In the last instant before the fire fell, I thought I saw something in its eyes. Not the demon, not the monster, but the man. Perhaps it was nothing but my imagination. But if it was real, if even a fragment of Veynar's defiance endured, then it died with his world. May the Emperor forgive us all. If this grim saga of possession and damnation in Warhammer 40K unsettled you, then join the ranks of the faithful. Subscribe to the channel for more chilling tales of the 41st Millennium. Like and share so others may know the price of corruption. Comment below. Which fate is worse, burned, bound, or broken? Because in the end, in this galaxy of eternal war, there is no salvation for the demon-possessed.